Also, what is very subtle is that the Jedi act out of fear as well. They mistreat Anakin as they fear what he might become, and this causes him to be angry, and they almost don't train him, which would have prevented him from stopping Palpatine. Also, actually arranging these emotions does make sense, as they aren't as interchangeable as Plinkett says. Emotions can lead to varying other emotions, but some paths are a lot more likely than others. Fear and just anger aren't dark enough to cause someone to suffer deeply. Only hate does that, and arranging emotions is done in ancient philosophy, which is the prequels are based on. Thucydides once said, "Self-control is the chief element in self-respect, and self-respect is the chief element in courage." So there you go. Also, the theme about fear ties closely into the original trilogy, where Luke has to overcome his own fear that he won't be able to do anything and trust his own skills, and to overcome his own self-doubt and fear of not being able to help his father. Also, Samuel L. Jackson gave a great performance. He was very harsh, worried, aggressive, but also supportive, and wise. Also, he had a great role. He fought Palpatine, led the Jedi attack, and made many decisions regarding Anakin. Also, his performance really becomes darker and darker, and his dialogue delivery wasn't awkward. He clearly emphasized the importance of Anakin being the chosen one, and he was worried, just calm, as they had time to plan when to react, and he talked a lot lower and stared intensely. It is just a more subtle performance, like Gary Oldman and Morgan Freeman in the Dark Knight trilogy, or Morgan Freeman in Seven. And he was really consistently flawless in Episode 2. Also, Liam Neeson, who wasn't bland, he was supportive, self-confident, yet sometimes critical and sometimes arrogant, calm, curious, etc. Also, Ian McGregor is great in all three films. In Episode 1, he really showed the character's cynicism, coldness, wiseness, and unconfidenceness. And Natalie Portman has been called cold, but she just gave a more restrained performance, like Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. She was curious, a bit childish, shy, responsible, caring, sad, supportive, tolerant, rebellious, bossy, etc. The film has really suspenseful music for the political parts, but also very comforting and warm and energetic for the parts with Anakin, and the themes that subtlety foreshadows tragedy is really subtle. The CGI has been called fake, but the droids, the Gungan City, Coruscant, and the spaceships all have depth and are complex and rough. The battle droids are harsh, and Jabba's skin is slimy, and most of all, the sea monsters are organic. Most of them are still amazing today. The people are just biased towards CGI because matte paintings also aren't three-dimensional in real life, and models also require a lot of manipulation, and CGI has advanced immensely in the 90s. Also, the cinematography is very detailed and focused, with fittingly warm colors for more character-based movements, yet using bleak and uncomfortable, stressful colors for more worried scenes, and it is very sharp, memorable sounds typical of a Star Wars film. Red Letter Media also complains the film adds politics and is too talky, making it boring, but it makes the story smarter and allows the film to have deep political themes. How is that a bad thing? What more sophisticated material is too boring now? And he constantly says the prequels are just mindless action films where the original trilogy had deep spiritual themes. Yet when these films try to be deep, they are boring, and also I guess he only wants spiritual and emotional but no political depth, with a simpler story but complex characters, like the original trilogy. And he constantly says he doesn't. Like things that are different, but then he complains when they are similar to the original trilogy. That is all very self-contradictory. And he says the films have too many different incompatible tones, but Episode 2 and 3 don't have any kiddie stuff. They are dark films, with a few lighter moments of course, but for the most part they are very dark. Only Episode 1 is more kid-friendly because it is a story of a world that starts off innocent and becomes corrupted. And it has a lot of fun action and humor, and more complex political elements. But so do Lord of the Rings, or pretty much any Pixar movie, but it's not brutally dark, and the two others that are very little kid stuff, and also have action and romance, but there are only a few cameo kids in it. A film with action and romance that is also a tragedy. Haven't heard of that before? Spider-Man 2, Jurassic Park, The Terminator, Aliens. Also, he wanted a talky meditation scene without lightsabers, yet he complains the films are already too boring. Huh? Also, multi-tone films are common anyways, because life involves both happiness and depression, often simultaneously. The Empire Strikes Back had torture and exciting action, and Yoda hitting R2 with a stick, that was hilarious. Come on. The Godfather had humor and brutal killing and fun romances. So does Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, etc. Also, a lot of things in one shot means the films are more complex and multi-layered, and the shots have a clear focus on the crucial events, so they can clearly follow it. And that is also more realistic, and if people can't follow it, or find it so exhausting that really it's just old and dull, many people can follow it just fine. And finally, the idea that George Lucas would only care for money in these films is just ridiculous, as, 1, if Lucas only cared for money, why wouldn't he just hire other filmmakers to direct and write and instruct them to put a lot of toys in it? Then he could get all the money with very little work. 2, does adding politics and a very serious tone and slow pace sound commercial to you? 3, why wouldn't he James Bond style and have it released a new Star Wars film each year after Jedi, instead of waiting 16 years for technology to catch up? That sounds like an artistic movie. 4. Why only have kiddie stuff in episode 1? 3 had barely any kiddie stuff. The tone simply became darker per each film to indicate the corruption and the action and romance aspects, where in the original trilogy also. Those only had a minor part, so why would that be to appeal to many audiences? Episode 1 only had a kid and child humor, so why would all 3 films be designed to appeal to many audiences? 2 and 3 are exclusively dark and talking, and 1 is barely violent. So episode 1 is barely violent, and 2 and 3 almost completely violent. Both have different audiences, and saying they also have action and romance to appeal to teenagers and girls is ridiculous, as the romance was necessarily part of the story, and all Star Wars films have action. And Gladiator also combined these elements, as did Blade Runner. 4. The prequels have less action than the originals. There. 5. Lucas on the behind-the-scenes features is constantly focused on talking about the historical parallels, the storylines, the characterization, and focused on the acting, the music, everything. The claim he didn't seem to care about anything other than seeing toys is ridiculous, and using one shot where people sound disinterested is ridiculous. So overall, Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace is an excellent and underrated film and gets a 9 out of 10 from me. Does it have flaws? A few. Every movie does. But for the most part, I say it's a great film. Well, thank you for watching, guys. I hope this video wasn't too long. Like I said, please go see reviewers down below. He puts way more thought into one review than I have for every single review I've ever done. Seriously, check him out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.